Sean, thanks for joining us today. If you can just start with introducing yourself, who you are, and what you do here in Shanghai.
Sure. How are you today, Christine? My name is Sean Ryan. I'm the founder and managing director of CMR, the China Market Research Group. We're a market intelligence firm. We try to compete with a McKinsey and a Bain, really the very premium level on helping companies make smarter decisions in China. China is obviously becoming a very hot market for a lot of companies, and they sometimes need help in really understanding consumer insights a little bit better, really understanding where real major growth initiatives and opportunities are. So that's what we set up a couple years ago, and I've been having a blast doing it since then.
Who's your target market here in China?
What do you mean by a target market?
Your target client, I should say.
I think, well, we work a lot with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. We work with SMEs and private equity firms and hedge funds. It doesn't really matter. We don't have a specific target market in that way. I think at the end of the day, the thread that runs through all of our clients is they're looking for really just the very best strategic advice around. And that's what we try to offer them.
And being a company that interfaces a lot with international firms and clients who are foreigners and maybe new to the market, if you can give us your insight on what are some of the misconceptions that you find foreigners in general make when they first come into China?
Well, let me bring it on my own experience a little bit. I've been in China pretty much since 1997, so it's been about 11 years now. And I first arrived here as a foreign student. So I was studying at Nankai University up in Tianjin in the north. And when I arrived, I actually had no preconceived notions of what China is or what China ought to be. I was kind of young and I hadn't read a lot about Chinese history. And so I just sort of plopped down here and fell in love with the place. I started to really like the people, like the culture and the history. And at the time in the mid-90s, China was just not hot in America. Right. You know, the only time people discussed China was really probably in fairly negative terms, or remembering the Tiananmen incident in '89 or in the Cultural Revolution. But that has changed tremendously. So back in '97, when I came here, people weren't really discussing China. Then a few years later, I became a teaching fellow at Harvard, and I would teach my students about China and modern Chinese history. And the first thing I would ask them in class is, what is your perception of China? And at that time period, people were still scared of China. Right. They viewed it as very poor, very backward. They felt that there were a lot of people still wearing Mao suits. Right. I mean, if you go to Disney World at Epcot Center at the time in the China display, they still had people wearing Mao suits, even up to, I think, about 2 years ago. Right. Now, I think people view China as just really a major market for producing. Just the very hottest, most electric market in the world for trying to make money. I think the preconceptions that people have don't always mirror reality. And so what do I mean by that? Some of the myths that people have here is that China's still poor, that it's a very authoritarian state, that people are still wearing like the Qing Dynasty style clothes and haircuts, and that China is a lot more difficult to live than it really is. I think there are a lot of differences between China and the United States, but there are also a lot more similarities.
Now, would you say Western media would be the sole reason for why people still have this preconceived notion?
Yeah, I think it's important for people to look at how the media approaches China and how you look at an organization like the New York Times, which clearly has motives of trying to keep China down, clearly tries to portray China in a very bad light. So according to the New York Times, China is just full of corrupt government officials. There's coal mines and dirt flying everywhere, and there's hookers next to every single person. They really, I think, in many ways demonize China. And then you look at some of the academic circles, and a lot of the professors at even the top universities, you know, when they were 25, when they were 30 years old and graduate students, China was still closed off to them. So they actually spent their formative academic years in Taiwan. And a lot of them had their funding from the Jiang Qinghuo Foundation, which is Chiang Kai-shek's son. And so they're very anti-China based. And so they're the ones that have built up the great canon of academic literature in the United States looking at China. So I think, you know, Americans in general, when they look at China, they really need to look between the lines, really understand that the academics, that the newspapers might not really be the best place to get information on China today. Personally, I get most of my information from a couple sources. I really like the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and Business Week because they have people on the ground here. But I read a lot of blogs, actually. I spend a tremendous amount of time reading blogs of people that have been here for 10 years.
first-hand perspective is very important. I guess,
Exactly.
in that
You know,
case.
they really know what China's like, and they're here because they appreciate the country, not because they dislike it
Right.
and wanted to criticize it.
Now, China's opened up for the past 20 years, and with that, a lot of foreign influence has come in. But just the same, a lot of Chinese themselves have gone overseas, internationalized themselves, and brought that experience back to contribute to the growth of the country. With that in mind, is there still a place for foreigners, or gone are the days that you can just show up as a foreign face in China and make a name for yourself? Can you give us some insight into how foreigners, or what role foreigners play right now, and if there is a role for them in the near future?
I think there's actually more role for foreigners now than there
Interesting.
was 10 years ago. I think when I first arrived in 97, the few select foreigners here were like the head of Motorola and some of the big companies like that. A lot of them just didn't really understand how the marketplace was going. What they were doing is bringing more of the corporate culture from the United States or Europe here. Now, however, I think that there is really a very good opportunity for foreigners to learn. Now, what do I mean by this? I think if we were to say in the United States you can only have Americans, that would be ridiculous. Why? Because America is a fairly globalized, international economic superpower. China's becoming that.
Right.
So China now needs perspectives of both foreigners and Chinese. And so that together, you're going to have the people with information on how things worked in other countries combining with the local information to be able to develop good strategies for growth here. So I'll use my own firm as an example. We try to keep 75% local and 25% foreign so that when we have discussions on how to track the markets and give advice for our clients, we can have different perspectives. So it's actually the best time for foreigners to come here now because China has opened up and is really integrating in the global economic system.
Now then, okay.
That being said, I think companies need to localize.
Right.
What do I mean by that? It doesn't make sense anymore to have an American manager sent out to China, just running everything, who's never been here, has no track record, and who might have been successful in other BRIC countries. So you need to get people on the ground here, running your operations, who understand how China works. That's important.
Right.
And set up the HR policies that will allow for Chinese nationals to move up the corporate ranks and get rid of glass ceilings. Some firms don't do that, especially the Japanese firms. They keep, the country heads always have to be Japanese, and I think that's a real problem because it's hard to attract top talent, because why would you want to work in a Japanese company if you can never even become country head if you're a very good, high-powered Chinese national?